And we are live. Welcome to the Yang Gang Roundtable Podcast, an ongoing discussion of poverty, UBI, and electoral politics. Today is Saturday, June 27th. My name is Jeremy, and today I'll be filling in for our usual host, Jill Riley. Get well soon, buddy. Joining me today, we have two other members from the roundtable. We have Faye and Ariel. You guys want to say hi real quick?
Oh, hi guys. My name is Ariel, and you can find me at Ariels_Armada on Twitter. So that's ARIELS_ARMADA. And don't forget to check Revolutionary Thing on YouTube.
Okay, and I'm, if you're looking for me on Twitter, I'm at Palestine Math. Or if you're looking for Zephyr, who is helping to put away the groceries right now. Palestine is where I live, out in East Texas. So at Palestine Math.
All right. Also joining us today is the one, the only, the great and powerful Pastor Stephen Browers. Thank you so much for joining us today, Pastor.
Hey, thanks so much. It's wonderful to be here. I'm Stephen Browers. I have the YouTube channel, Yang Gang Christians. I'm from Iowa, and I think my Twitter handle is at Browers Stephen, but it might be at Stephen Browers. I don't know. I think it's at Browers Stephen, but.
All right.
So yeah, I have a special guest that will be joining us soon, possibly. And I never get any attention from Yang Gang in terms of people actually coming out to visit. I did have Fred Ramey come out once in his truck that was wrapped, That was really exciting. But then, of course, he had to park it at the big Walmart where we can have truck parking. And so today I have a special guest that will be joining us, and I'll just let him do that later so we can introduce him. So it's my first time meeting you, Mr. Browers. Is that too formal, Pastor Browers?
That's fine, Stephen. Stephen, my dad always told me to tell people my friends call me Stephen, but honestly, a lot of my friends call me Steve. But my wife calls me Stephen. I go by lots of names.
Well, I did really get excited when I saw that you had started a Christians for Yang. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and
I started it a long time ago. I was just trying to think of what I could do. And I've mentioned this on my channel lots of times, but, I was really thinking about the general election. I mean, I wanted to get videos out there that people could share with their friends or family who, voted for Trump, but, always felt uncomfortable with that as being a Christian or just couldn't imagine doing it again. And I thought, let's get them the information about humanity first, the Yang Gang values. Let's let them share this stuff so that, because I knew for sure that Andrew would win the Democratic primary, because once I heard his message, I was like, there's no way anyone else is going to win this. But I was wrong. But that's why I first started it, because, I figured this would be great in the general.
What's the general reception been within the Christian community and your political activism?
Well, in my church, they've sort of let me do my thing, although I try not to talk about my church because my church itself does not sponsor me or support, Andrew Yang or anything like that. And so I don't put up my signs. I live in a parsonage, which means the church owns my house, so I don't put up any signs there, although I did have my my bumper stickers, of course, on my vehicles, but they don't own my vehicles. So, but I mean, my church sort of let me do my thing because I've been here for 10 years and I've tried to never talk about politics ever because I felt like it was wrong, actually, for me to talk about politics as a pastor because I didn't want anyone in my church to ever think that, they had to be a Republican or a Democrat in order to worship God. So I tried to be quiet completely. So I think, and then I sort of gave some warnings on Facebook and stuff like, I'm going to do this. So, unfriend me now. I talked to my counsel and said, this guy, Andrew Yang, I feel like I have to speak up and do some things, and I don't do things halfway, so just be prepared. And so I think they kind of let me do my thing since I had never really talked about politics before.
Yeah, we just had a conversation with Reverend Wendy Wendy Hamilton. Is that her name? Yeah.
Yep.
And she was awesome. And one of the questions that we asked her was also like, it is very tricky because in the United States, we have like some rules against churches really participating. But I think that's true for everybody. I mean, if you have a job, right, you're afraid to talk about your politics at your work, whatever your work is, because, and the same thing with like, if you're a teacher, you're afraid to talk about it, but you feel like that, you know, like you need to move the country forward. So how do you engage in politics? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so my church was pretty well. They weren't supportive, but there were people in my church who supported me, and a few people got mad, but not really very many. And considering the vast majority of my church is strong Republicans, I felt pretty good about that. I never felt like my job was in danger. But again, the reason I always had tried to stay away from it, and even why I was pretty careful with Andrew Yang, supporting him, is because I know that as a pastor, I have there's a power dynamic. And so if I start talking about someone, people might feel, you know, unconsciously, like in order to be my friend or in order for me to serve them or to like them, they'd have to agree with everything I agree with. And that's the thing. That's why I just don't want people to feel that kind of pressure. But the reason I could support Andrew, and I did, is because I didn't feel like he was just a Democrat or a Republican. I felt like he was right in the middle. He wasn't going to say anything that was ever going to offend my Republican congregation members, and he never did. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, we talked about the Poor People's Campaign with Reverend Wendy also, and they say something like they're not really, they say that they're not partisan, you know, but they're almost militantly political in a sense, because they feel that the solutions that we need in the world require politics. But they never say we're for this, you know, this particular party. They just say we're going to get these solutions on the table. We don't care which party you work with.
Exactly. And that's what I love about Andrew. In fact, in some ways, well, I mean, I've seen people on Twitter in the Yang Gang talking about, you know, they don't understand why he doesn't run as a Republican. And I definitely hear what they're saying, because many of the policies he has would be supported in the Republican Party. But I feel like socially, he has a fit in the Democratic Party that I just don't think he would have in the Republican Party. So I can see why he ran as a Democrat. I do. But, you know, sometimes I do wish that, just because his policies are so bipartisan, and if we had a third party, he would be the perfect nominee to really, if we had a strong enough third party that it was actually a real possibility to win. I mean, it would be perfect there.
I can almost hear our co-host Shale in my ear saying he loves the word nonpartisan. There's bipartisan, and then there's nonpartisan, which is even more accurate, I think. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
we have.
Stephen, have you heard of the Eric Weinstein's Dark Horse Duo proposal? And if you have, what's your thoughts on that?
I have heard of it, but I have not looked into it. I really haven't. I've seen a few comments or thoughts. I guess for me, I just don't think it's possible, and I don't think Andrew will do it. And so I just can't go there personally. I just don't want to get my hopes up in a way. I don't want to, because I don't do things halfway. And I mean, you know, if someone gave me a good reason to go back out canvassing for Andrew, I would do it. But I have a lot of other things to do. So I have not spent a lot of time really delving deep into that one.
So what is your, I kind of agree with you, just know, like everybody, it's kind of a wishful, you know, thinking on our part, but I just don't think Andrew would do it himself.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to push him. So what do you think is actually, what I really loved about your series was you went through all of those different values that we had, and and you showed how they were aligned with Christianity and about Christian values. And that's what I'm hoping that you know, that we can show how the values work for UBI or for these different policies that are really like really important. But it seems like sometimes Christianity seems to be all about just abortion or just certain, you know, specific
Yeah.
values, but there's so many more values. My favorite is the abundance one.
Yes.
Is that, I don't know, do you have a favorite or?
You know, well, boy, do I have a favorite. I wish I had a favorite, but they're just, I mean, the 6 Yang Gang values, when I read those online for the first time, I think I went on to like the base camp, or maybe it was just Yang Gang base camp on Facebook one time. And it said, before you say you're part of the Yang Gang, read these values. And I read them. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like, this is exactly like what I believe, this everything. I mean, I guess grace and forgiveness, I guess that would be my favorite because.
And that's the one that Dr. Jet said that we are worst at practicing in our group.
Yes. Yeah. But grace and forgiveness, I mean, I loved the fact that, like, in the little write-up, it said, you know, we know that our candidate is going to mess up. We know that our campaign is going to mess up, and we know that our followers are going to mess up, and we're going to forgive them. You know, I mean, there's really nothing more Christian than that. However, I'm not saying all Christians act like that, okay? I'm just saying that's the basics of Christianity, is that grace and forgiveness. So, and I can't imagine any other, although maybe I'm wrong, but I can't imagine other candidates or other campaigns really making that a core part of their message. But I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the other campaigns did have some sort of values that they set. Like, I feel that when you know, Bernie is talking about how it's not, how does he say it? It's not me,
us.
It's us. It's not me, us. I think he's getting at something that is like humility. And yet we don't have a sense that the followers are necessarily practicing the same humility that he's setting forth. So I like that, how we had the specifics, you know, of all the things that, and we had detailed explanations of what each of the little messages meant. And
yes.
But yeah, I want to actually, I'm trying to work on joining this group called the Nonviolent Communications. Have you heard of that? And they are doing the New York group with Tom Bond is doing a year-long course in compassion. It's called the Compassion Course. I think the compassioncourse.org. I think that's where you sign up. And they are just starting a whole new session just now. I think this week they started. And so it's not too late to sign up. They try to collect some money, but you know, if it's your first time and you're not sure if you really want to do it for money or anything like that, you can ask for a dispensation. So it's automatic, you get it automatically. You know, you just go on and sign up and say you want an alternate payment system. So I encourage people to join me because, you know, I feel like compassion and grace and forgiveness and all of these different values that we had have to be practiced like on a daily basis, like for the entire lifetime that you are alive. It's like every day you have to practice it all over again because it's not that easy. What do you think about that?
I think that those values, humanity first, grace and forgiveness, it's what drew me even more to the Yang Gang and why I love the Yang Gang so much. And it was such a different kind of positive atmosphere on Twitter and on Facebook. However, I admit that we aren't always good at this. And maybe worse recently, I guess, I mean, since the campaign ended. However, I understand that. I mean, this is a thing that I think non-Christians don't get sometimes. Like, as a Christian, of course, all these values, I believe, are the same values in Christianity. What Andrew Yang's campaign and Christian values are the same. But I mean, what do you hear about Christians? Oh, they're hypocrites. They say they love people, but they're jerks, you know, they're judgmental. Well, of course, because in Christianity, we say that's because we're sinners. Well, I believe Yang Gang are sinners too. I mean, like, they're gonna screw up, like they're gonna fail. Like, it's not a surprise, okay? So, but the fact is that if we're all trying to do it, you know, reminding humanity first, reminding, you know, of course, there are gonna be different opinions. We're on the left and the right. We're trying to move forward. Just always practicing that, trying to do better. That's what it's about. I mean, of course, we're going to be hypocritical as Yang Gang. That's just part of being a human being, I guess.
So I had to pick your brains on this, okay? Because I want to do this compassion course thing, and I've offered it, you know, on like our fan base. So we've lost base camp, so we're kind of just gathering in fan base now on Facebook anyway. And then I've offered it on Twitter, and I've noticed that mostly women sign up for this. And I can't seem to get the young men and the other people, in there. I don't know. I feel like kind of maybe, if you're self-selecting and you decide to join, right? Perhaps the people who really need to spend more time thinking about it are the ones who don't value it. And so they're not going to sign up. So I'm like, how do I help this to propagate? I guess it'll be nice if the women, start practicing it and doing kind of, but I'm wondering, how do I get them to come to to practice with us? Yeah.
I don't know if I have the answer, but I definitely hear what you're saying. It reminds me of the same issue that churches have about more women attend than men. And it reminds me of a book that I read called Why Men Hate Going to Church. And it talked about just all the reasons. And I think it's right. Like there has to be a challenge. Like for instance, if someone told me that, put it forward as something hard to do, like that was a challenge that very few men can pass this course, or if you make it like, there are 90% women attend this course. If you're single, go out for this course. No, I mean, just it talks about, why.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I literally just talked to Sola, who's running this, the Singles Mingle. And I was like, you have more men in your group and I have more women in my group. So like, how do we like?
But there's gotta be like a challenge. I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you the whole book, but it was just making the point that think about, we don't want to make certain things women only or men only. And sometimes guys have this misconception that there are certain things that are just for girls. Girls don't really have that. Like, here's one example the book gave. If you told a girl like, hey, you can go to Menards and learn how to cut wood, like with a saw, like women, like, I mean, you might not want to, but I mean, it would be okay if you did. It would be like expanding your horizons, right? But if you told a guy, hey, we're going to go to Joanne Fabrics and we're going to learn how to sew a pillow, a lot of guys might feel like that's not a man thing to do. I mean, I know it's like maybe uncivilized to say that, but a lot of guys feel that way. So there are certain.
Are you sure the women would show up for the thing you just said?
No, I don't know, but that's the example the book gave is and it was saying like church is sort of considered now to be a women's thing to do, like the girls and the older men, but not like teenage guys and high or college guys. They don't go to church.
Well, let's ask Ariel and Jeremy.
Yeah.
I mean, what types of things would motivate you to join something like that?
Well,
do I just hit it on like there's a lot of women here coming to women, or what do I do?
Hang on. I'm a Jew, so I go to synagogue. But a lot of times, when I was younger and I was starting to grow up, synagogue would get really, really boring, unfortunately, because they speak Hebrew, but that's not the only thing. But it was like, okay, I get it. We sit down, we pray, and then we stand up, and then we pray, and then they tell us to go to like page like 56, and then go to this page. Okay, now sit down again, now stand up again. But they didn't really do anything to like make it relevant to our lives. It's like, okay, like there are these stories of the people who did all these things in the past and they had all these like trials and tribulations, but how does that relate to like helping me and like my struggles in my life? So I think if you make it relatable, if you make it like, this is how we can help you with what you're going through, or if these are the struggles that you have, and make it fun, that'll really work. But if you just like say, go to this page and like say this prayer and then go to the next page and then sit down and stand up, it's like, okay, like I'm kind of getting bored and this isn't relevant to my life.
Well, you're talking about church, whereas I'm thinking about this compassion course, right? And the relevance of that is that it's an organizing tool that we should be using, right? We're always talking about how do we yang people. But if we're going to yang somebody, right, you don't want to get into these trolley conversations we do online, which we're even doing in our own group.
So maybe for that, it's like try to make it interesting. And it's like, hey, you want more people to like follow your ideas? you need to be a compassionate person, because everybody like gets angry that people aren't like following their way of thinking. And it's like, well, you're never going to get them to follow your way of thinking if you're being rude and nasty and mean. But wouldn't it make you happy if they did? So this is one way to do it,
But nobody that I talk to thinks that they themselves are rude. Only other people are rude.
Yeah.
This is why I can't get anybody to work on their own things. Like,
I don't know.
I mean,
what do you think, Jeremy?
I think the course is a great idea. I think what's difficult and what makes it a little less approachable for some people is that it is a year-long commitment, which is pretty difficult. And I think also, whether people want to admit it or not, the divide in this country is so great now that to even entertain the idea of compassion for someone who you seem as irredeemable in whatever respect is, larger than ever. So whether or not people want to admit that bias or not, it is probably deep within them. And it's a difficult sell. In 2020, I think it's a difficult sell. Do I think that's the right thing? Absolutely not. I just think that's probably the reality of the boots on the ground.
Well, I feel like the title might be hurting it because, for instance, if you called it Field Organizer Boot Camp, but you talked about compassion and how to be kind to people online and how important that is. I feel like guys might be more likely to go to Field Organizer Boot Camp because they want to be part of the Yang game and they want to make a difference for Andrew Yang next time. And then say, hey, if you want to be a good field organizer, you got to be a good listener. You got to love people unconditionally. But that's just a guess.
Right. We've had several people do like video, like teaching how people should organize and how to talk to people because of the phone banking, right? We had phone banking training.
Yeah.
So all these trainings, they pretty much say that, but how do you actually learn compassion and empathy? That's the thing I'm working on. It's like, it's not obvious what that means. People think it is, but it's not. And then, so like when you talk to people and say, everybody thinks that they're an empathetic person. Nobody says, yeah, I just don't know how to do that. Like everybody, but obviously we're not practicing it all the time because it's really difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. I would say like for the year-long commitment, it's kind of like how people say, oh, I'm going to commit to a diet this year. I'm making a resolution. Everybody makes that resolution on the New Year day. And then about 3 weeks later, everybody's forgotten about it, So, I would say you could jump into the compassion course and find out what it's like for the first 2 weeks. And if it's not for you, just, take off, It's fine if you don't commit to it forever. But then you start getting all the emails and you can get them like once a week, and you don't have to do anything else if you don't want to do anything else. And if you want to read it, read it. If you want to come practice, come to the group, but like, I don't think it has to be that complicated. Like I'm signing up for a year and if I don't do this podcast right, I'm going to get, some sort of punishment or something. It's pretty simple, I think. And then I like that idea of rebranding that to the whole organizing. Yeah. I'm going to talk about that with somebody else today. Thank you very much for that idea. So
it sounds like a great thing to do. It really does.
Well, I think, ultimately the problem is we don't know what it means. So sometimes you're instructed to do something and you don't really know how to do it. But the only way to do it is you got to practice like every day. This is how I think,
But like Faye, I really think that like Yang Gang people are like mostly like the friendliest in the whole political scene. I see more of that behavior of not being like kind to one another. Like, I don't mean to offend, but in the other camps, like in the Bernie and Warren and especially Trump. So it's like, it's kind of like, shouldn't we be introduced,
Try to go to their camps, infiltrate and teach them.
Infiltrate.
But yeah, but it's good to, be compassionate and stuff. But the thing that I see is that like, but at the same time, you also don't want to be a doormat. So how can I say you don't want to let people kind of like step all over you? And I kind of think that Yang, if he was a little, I don't know, too friendly at times. It's like he needed to show that like he just won't be like pushed around and like getting the least speaking time and stuff like that. But
I hear a
think-
really good question in there for Stephen.
Yeah.
I think Stephen's got an answer for this one. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the question was, but I definitely remember a lot of people being mad at Andrew during debates for being too nice. You know, from
So the
my
question is, can you be too nice? Should we just, do we have to have a more aggressive stance when we're politicking?
This will just be my personal opinion. Of course, I don't know the right answer. And obviously, some people could say he lost, so he was too nice. But I don't think he lost because he was too nice. I don't think being aggressive would have changed anything. It would have, personally, I don't think it would have changed anything. They weren't giving him the speaking time for other reasons, not because of him being kind or not because he didn't jump in more. I personally think. I mean, I think he was being countercultural. I think if you were going to vote for him over Donald Trump, I mean, you needed somebody that was going to be the opposite of Donald Trump, and that's what he was. I mean, he was like the opposite of Donald Trump in every debate. If Donald would have been there, he would have been, talking about, Pocahontas, or whatever, pick some horrible thing to say. And
He makes up a name for every single person except for Andrew.
I know. But I mean, I loved the fact that that Andrew stuck to his guns. And I mean, that was just my personal opinion about it. But, he was not a normal politician. And it's possible that nice guys won't ever finish first. It's possible. But I loved supporting a guy like him.
Well, I'm bringing you a nice guy as a friend right
Yeah.
now. Have you ever met Daniel before? Yeah.
I don't
I
think
can't
so.
hear anybody though.
I know. I'm going to turn this on. So here,
Oh.
come on. Can you hear them better now? Let's
I
try
don't
it.
know. Hello.
Hello.
What's up, Daniel?
How's it going? I don't know if
Good.
I've met. I mean, obviously Ariel, but I don't know if I've met anybody else. But I've
Oh.
seen.
Jeremy is our producer person,
All right,
All right.
you're coming up in the world. Oh, wait.
and Stephen is a pastor.
Yeah, I've seen Pastor Stevens videos.
Awesome.
Like, awesome. So
Uh,
yeah.
This is
Nice
such
to meet you, Daniel.
This is such a nice guy. He's going to be making me delicious, healthy food so that I can be healthier this weekend. And so I can
Awesome.
be doing my work with you right now. We just went put away all the groceries we just got this morning.
No, I didn't put them all away.
Not yet?
Still working
Okay.
on them
Well,
because I got so many.
he made Zephyr a sandwich, so Zephyr's super quiet for a minute.
Nice.
So at least there's
Yeah.
that.
So Yang
So-
Gang is full of nice guys. This is where we got to last, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Stephen, you mentioned when you were speaking last that you described Andrew's, I guess, his demeanor as a countercultural and as being a compassionate and I guess loving person. Is that? Do you think that's really now a counterculture subject? And is that like, I guess, could you say that like that is the edgy thing to be now?
I do believe so. I mean, it's hard as a pastor. I just always see these connections. I mean, I bet that when Jesus was crucified, and of course, this is from my opinion, right? When he was crucified, a lot of people are like, why? Well, actually, it's written in the Bible. Why don't you come down from the cross? Save yourself, like kind of thing. So from my perspective, why didn't he? I mean, he could have he said, if I want to, I can call legions of angels to come and kick your butt, then I could have proven it, but that's not what he was trying to teach us to do. Humility doesn't do that. But also, I talked a little bit about this on my channel. There's this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And just talking from not just a personality wise, but the first chapter is don't criticize, condemn someone because it won't work. Like it doesn't change their minds. And I feel like just thinking from that perspective, persuasive, like how to persuade somebody, Andrew is doing it the right way. He could get on his podcast and I think when Mark Cuban was talking about sort of criticizing UBI, Andrew could have totally been like, you are wrong, Mark, you are completely wrong, but would that have changed Mark Cuban's mind? Would it have changed any of Mark Cuban's fans? I mean, probably not. He just has to say, laugh a little bit
Yeah.
and give the alternative way of thinking, and just continuing his message. And that's what I think can really change people's minds if they're going to change their minds. That's the thing.
Can I chime in now?
Yeah.
Why
I'm
not?
gonna use all my expertise to tell you what's going on now.
Yeah.
So anyone who can state a problem is considered the expert. So that's what Andrew's good at, but that's also what Trump is good at. He's able to, even if he's kind of wrong, Trump, I'm saying, he still states that there's a problem. And anybody who can define a problem is considered the expert. So the way Andrew does it with, he does it with compassion. He's very, he uses kind of like a compassion way of understanding it. So, you know, he doesn't talk first, which is key to, you know, communication. And whenever somebody, if you notice how Andrew talks, anytime somebody states a problem, like they could go, this is going on, that's going on, you know, this is going on. And then with empathy, what Andrew will do is he'll go, you know, you're right. And it's even worse than you think. This is also what's going on in your local area, or in this issue. And he states out some more things. So that is empathy. Okay. That's what he's practicing. So really to influence, I mean, at a higher level, to influence anybody, you can use empathy. And so those are things like, don't say you're wrong. You know, it's like Trump, people, you know, talk about Trump and being critical of people, but he's critical of people that aren't around him personally. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to point out a bad guy that can't defend themselves out in the ether. Okay. And that's where he's critical, but he's not critical to his base or people around him. You know, people around him are great, fantastic people. Okay. And so people will still find that empathy. So
Well, something that Trump does really well was he always tells everybody that he has the best people.
you're right.
And he has, everybody that follows him are the best, even when, you know, other people are out criticizing and saying, well, they're racist or they're this or that. He always somehow manages to,
Right.
you know, he makes everybody feel like.
So it's
they're
us
his
against
buddy.
them.
Yeah.
Is when it comes down to it, us against them. And so to influence people at a high level, if you can use empathy, which is not saying you're wrong, okay, but restating the problem, even if you, like Andrew does at a higher level where he adds to the problem so people know he has a understanding. But if you can just repeat their words and like, this is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong. So what you're saying is this was wrong, that is wrong. And you get them to say, that's right. That's like a critical thing. If you can get them to say that's right and understand that you understand, then they have you've given influence over them because they feel, because you're being empathetic.
But also because like nobody wants you to try to solve their problem if you don't understand them first. I have that problem a lot with my parents. You know, sometimes I try to tell my parents about something and they just out with the solution right away. But actually what I want them to do is say, I understand you first.
Yeah,
and I feel like sometimes their solutions don't match my problem or my situation. I mean, you know, you don't know about the fact I have this boy I have to take care of, you know.
Right. And that's the thing with like men-women communication, as you probably know, Pastor, that men always want to solve the problem right away, and women don't want the problem solved, but they want to be listened to. And so it's really hard for men to understand, like when a woman talks about the problems, that they need to not use words like say, well, this is what you do. They don't want that. What you have to, the empathy thing, the main thing that you want to learn is, I feel, it seems like, it sounds like, it feels like. Those kind of things is the key to showing empathy, rather than, hey, I have a solution for you. And then if they say, well, what do you think I should do about it? Then that's when you can offer a solution.
Yeah. Nobody likes it when I give them advice because they're not asking me for advice.
Yeah, that's right.
You just want me to listen to them.
I think that's one of the reasons why Trump won his election, because he was just saying these we have these problems, we have those problems and this, but his solutions really didn't go anywhere. But at least he was acknowledging the problem. And then if you look at the Democratic side, they
what I'm
weren't
talking
even saying what the problems were. They were just saying that, oh, like you got to stop discriminating and being racist. Like this is all your problem. But it's like, hey, hang on a second. Like these people are losing their jobs in mass. They're turning into like opioids and alcohol and all of that stuff. And then I was just seeing from the Democrats like, oh, that's no big deal. We got to learn how to like get along. You're not even acknowledging like what they're going through. And then Andrew came along and he's like, hey, I'm acknowledging what you're going through, and I think I have something that can help you. That's why you never saw Trump once attack Andrew Yang or even mention him, because he knew it's like, I have to avoid Yang because I know he's the only threat. But all these other Democrats were just so out of like the loop on like the problems that were going on that, hey, that's what we got.
and that's kind of what I was saying. If you can state the problem or the understanding of the problem, you'll be considered the expert whether you have a solution or not. And so that's why politicians, even running Pete Buttigieg or whatever, were very not problem oriented or solving oriented. They were very, general as to what the solution would be. And you would hear Pete Buttigieg for a lot of times saying, oh, well, I need to look into that or whatever. But he would state the problem and the understanding of it and offer no solution and be very general. And that's what politicians drive us crazy in the Yang Gang, because we know Andrew. But that's what politicians generally do, so that they can feel that, that, or giving that feeling that they're expert, that they know something.
Like the theater.
Not having to be.
What worries me about what's happening now, and the one thing that Andrew Yang talked about all the time that I miss and that isn't being talked about. I mean, UBI is talked about, and now data privacy, all that stuff, getting paid for our data. But like it's even more so now. Trump is the problem that's going to be solved in the next election. Like that's all that we're talking about. And I mean, I completely understand and get it. And it makes me sick to my stomach just, thinking about him as my president, all this stuff. But I mean, Andrew would always say he is not our only problem. Like, he is not the problem. The economy is the problem. This virus is the problem. I mean, there are people that, Donald Trump is not going to, if he loses, then what? Like, then is the problem really gone?
Right.
I'm not convinced.
The problem is that we have to bring everybody along with us when we do politics. And if you are leaving behind a chunk of people who just don't agree with you and you can't figure out how to get them aligned with you, then you're not organizing fully. Like, so we have somebody in our podcast group that sent me a really great video that described the difference between organizing and mobilizing. Where organizing, he says, is it was a lady who was speaking about labor unions and how they organized with that. And she was saying that organizing is about showing other people that, your actual goals are aligned with each other. So it doesn't matter, like what opinions you have about various things, doesn't matter, just that you're trying to work towards the same purpose. And then whereas, so you get more people into your group that way. But mobilizing is just calling up the people you already know and saying, hey, it's time to go. Let's go do something together. Which we need to do both. But honestly, the Yang Gang has to focus on growth now. It's like there's a whole, we have a goal to grow 10 times by 2024.
And I don't think it's going to happen unless we get some marketing money and we do some like grassroots marketing. Not even a lot of money, but I've had several ideas that, would take, $1,000 or whatever, but there should be like, Andrew should be setting aside like Yang Gang money for his marketing going forward for like grassroots people.
You mean like a
UBI Trump, for marketing?
Well, Trump was what, collecting money and fundraising throughout his entire presidency, just for this moment, for him to go. So why shouldn't we be doing? He should be doing some fundraising for that too.
I just think that if like independent creators like us were getting some kind of funding, we would be putting out a lot more content.
Oh, you're talking about to support the
Yeah.
Yang Gang.
The Yang Gang, we would be putting out a
Ah.
lot more content if we had more funding.
I was talking about like the Yang. I was
Oh.
talking about like Yang's campaign group.
Yeah,
They've moved
Well,
into
yeah,
this
they-
other space now.
they should.
But
Yeah,
they should also continue doing the
Collecting.
political. I
Yeah.
think that's true because especially for us poor people, right? When we
Sure.
pay for something, we're like $5 a month. We can handle that.
Mm.
So if
Yeah.
they wait until like a year before, we're only going to give them $5 a month because that's what we can afford. You know, we're not going to give them $120 now because they didn't ask us for 3 years. It's just not.
Yeah,
gonna
that's a great point.
happen. Yeah, we should probably
Yeah.
mention that at some point. Try to talk up to the and ask them to just start doing that.
well, the thing was, I personally think Andrew lost specifically. I mean, there's other reasons maybe, but specifically when he said that when he collected all the money in October that he was going to put gasoline on the fire that is the Yang Gang. And then what happened is he hired high-priced corporate media company to do his commercials. And that was another fire somewhere far away from the Yang Gang that he put all his resources in. And that did not turn into a blaze. It turned into a pitter. You know, he wasted all that money. Those commercials did not help him get in closer to winning. If he would have spent even like $10,000 or $1 million
Oh, that's true.
on all the Yang Gang independent creators, like to their
Oh yeah.
to their
What in the FEC would prevent him from doing that?
I don't know.
I don't think
R-
anything.
right.
Actually, he could buy, podcasts and stuff like
Yeah.
that because yeah.
If he would have done
that's true.
if he would have done that, that would have been correct fire on the Yang Gang, and we would have put out so much content and quality content that the whole world would know about Andrew within a month, maybe two.
The
Well, I think
whole
he-
world was starting to know because a guy from Denmark came over to Iowa to canvas for Yang. They were from all over the world, but the thing is, yeah, he should have created the passion like you were there, Daniel, with that event in LA where the loudspeakers and the fireworks and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
He should have mobilized more energy like that and around the country instead of paying those corporate consultants.
Yeah, it was money
Well-
wasted, but
Yeah, well,
So
he did do a little bit of
Stephen
that.
has Stephen has a channel for the Christians for Yang.
Right.
Is that what the name of
Yep,
it is?
or Yang Gang Christians. Yep.
Yang Christians.
Sure.
So you probably could have done a lot with $5,000 for
Well,
your channel.
I don't know. I mean, being in Iowa, I can't disagree. I feel like the money wasn't totally well spent on the ads, the TV ads. Although, of course, hindsight is 2020 because it did something different. I mean, I started canvassing in September, and I was constantly doing it. And the difference between September and January was huge. People would always say, "Oh yeah, I've seen his commercials." Like they knew who he was, and
right.
it is really hard to convince someone to go for this crazy idea they've never heard from somebody they've never heard of.
No,
And I think that's what he was doing. And in some ways, it really did work. Like
Yeah.
it made it so that people agreed. But, I just wonder sometimes if it was even possible. I mean, when you consider that, like after Andrew dropped out, I mean, you had Bloomberg money and you had, Pete Buttigieg money and you had all these people and Biden won. Like Biden
Yeah.
didn't run an
Well-
ad. Biden didn't have anything he stood on other than I'm going to beat Donald Trump. And I
Yeah.
mean, he won. Like it makes
Yeah.
me wonder if there was even a way that Andrew was going to win. So, I mean, I wanted him to, I wished he would have. I don't understand why he didn't, but like in that environment, it just makes me think probably it ended up as best as we can. We lost, but in the end, we're winning the long-term war, like in terms of UBI and
Oh yeah.
data privacy and stuff.
Yeah.
So
So what do you think is the best thing that we could be doing right now? So we asked the same question to Wendy, and she said that we should do more self-care and so I believe that self-compassion is actually a really big part of learning what compassion is about. But what do you think we should be doing now as a Yang Gang? What would be your call to action for us?
I can't speak for everybody. I guess I believe it's just very much like the universal basic income. I don't want to be like the government and tell everybody what they need to spend their money on, like food stamps or for, each particular thing. Like, this is for housing, this is for food, this is going to be for your medical insurance. Let's just give them $1,000 and you spend it on what you need. So I guess I believe each individual Yang Gang member is probably going to have something they need to work on. I have my own. I'll bring up the thing I'm working on right now that I believe, for me personally, I can do is focus not so much on Andrew Yang and focus on the policy that means the most to me, which is universal basic income. And so I've been working for like the last 2 or 3 weeks on creating a website, and it's called Christians for UBI. It's not launched yet. I've been working on the content, but my goal is Andrew will have a place on there, but I'm really trying to just reach out to Christians in general, regardless of political identity, and saying, this is a policy you need to get behind, and let them know, all about it and why it's Christian values, and frequently asked questions, and what Christian leaders, how they support it, like Martin Luther King Jr. and the Pope, you know what I mean? And
wow. When the Pope,
and all these things.
Wow.
And then sort of my goal is, and then letting them know these are the candidates running right now that support UBI on, left and right and in the middle. And for me, that's what I need to do. I don't know. Self-care is always important, but I don't know how that would necessarily help, Andrew get to be president or get universal basic income.
I think her point was that, you can't, it's like put on your own safety belt first. There's a lot of things happening for people right now. And the most important thing is to be really strong going into the next wave of whatever we're doing. So don't stress yourself out on, you have to be doing this, you have to be doing that, because it's not sustainable. A lot of us really wore ourselves out in the last round. So,
and I'm very privileged. The truth of the matter is that stimulus for me, first of all, it wasn't just $1,200. It was $1,200 for me, $1,200 for my wife, and like $500 for all of my kids, right? So,
how many kids do you have, Stephen?
Well, I have 5 now, but I only had 4 when the stimulus came. So we're talking $4,400 with a family with 2 incomes. I'm just saying, I'm rich compared to a lot of the people in the world, of course, but in the Yang Gang, for me, I need to be doing something different than other people. But yeah, if you're just living on 3 months off $1,200, you probably shouldn't be putting together a website. You've got to take care of yourself.
Taking care of yourself, yeah. So it's really individual, like you said.
That's the wonderful thing, is that the people who have more resources and more of the means can be helping others and getting the word out. So it's like a triage kind of situation that we have going on. And I think that after Andrew Yang suspended his campaign, that's when his name recognition went up the highest. It was so funny. But the thing is that it's not just a presidential campaign anymore. It's like a new way of looking at the world. It's like a new vision for the world that we can live in, and that just doesn't disappear. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is that the ideas and the vision are more relevant now than they ever were at any time. And now is the perfect time to just talk about the vision and the ideas, and the people aren't even going to know if it's connected to Yang or not. They're just going to listen to you, and they're just going to say, hey, that makes sense. Why have we never talked about it before? And this lays the foundation. And not to mention all of a sudden, all these UBI candidates running for Congress, running for local office, we can really change the entire game from the ground up.
Yeah, I talked to Blair Walsingham from Tennessee, and I haven't talked to, but Jermaine down in South Carolina. Those people, I wish I had someone from my area, but I don't. But it's so cool that they're running and they're winning. and they have a chance to get the message out. Whether they win and make it in or not, the message is getting out there to more and more people.
Can you run?
The running part is pretty important. Yeah. The actual.
I won't run. My wife would not support me in running.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, but
Just so you have a new baby.
We did, yeah. She's a little over a month old. She was born on May 23rd.
There will be other times when you might run for office in the future.
Yeah.
I think you're needed at home right now.
That's right.
But yeah, it's not even running. It's just like changing the narrative. And I think that there's after this pandemic and after this like race stuff that's going on, there's no going back. And you know what? Like I'm glad we're not going back, because what would we have been going back to? If we do go back after this, then it's like we haven't learned anything, and all this stuff is just going to happen again, because those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So
Right.
we learn from our history and we start switching and turning into another direction.
Well, going back is always a fantasy because time keeps marching forward no matter what we do.
Mhm.
You can't really go back. You can never really, they call it, you can't go home again, right?
And
So
I'm glad you can.
I like how Jeremy has bail out the people behind him on his wall, because I think that's one of my big priorities right now is bail out the people is about a recurrent cash stimulus right now, right? For specifically for the coronavirus. Is that right, Jeremy?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Is that like a high priority for you? Is that why you have it up?
Yeah, I would say in terms of even why I do this podcast, UBI is single-handedly the most important subject that I am like laser focused on. Out of Yang's 130 policies, they were all great, but the only one I actually care about is UBI. I think that is the cornerstone to making the other 129 an actual reality.
Well, that's the foundation. Like if you want to build a house, you start with you don't build the roof first. So we gotta start like on the ground level, and and that's the thing. It's because UBI is the most freedom American centered principle out there, because it takes power from the top and it gives it to the people. You know why do we look like the most American of phrases, right? No taxation without representation. So a UBI is like a representation, because it takes money to do whatever you want to do with the world. So it's our representation for that taxation, like just straight up, because the taxes aren't going to get lost in some complicated pipes or some bureaucracy. It's just going to lay a foundation for us, and we represent ourselves with the kind of power that we're getting to do what we want in the world.
Yep. I think it's sometimes we don't talk about it as much in podcasting and live streaming, because we feel like Yang Gang has really talked it over, and we're talking with other Yang Gang, but people do not understand it. People really don't understand what a UBI is. And then when you say universal, but they want to give it to just people who are poor. And you're like, wait a minute. And we have a lot of people even in Yang Gang who don't understand that. Like the universality of it,
It's unconditional. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like for instance, even as I'm saying this, like, I feel so rich because like I have 2 incomes, although my wife will be staying home now. So we're down to 1. But, we had, so we have her income for another like 2 months. And then we got this stimulus, which we didn't need at the time, but like, so I feel super duper rich. Like I am not like rich, but I feel rich. And I feel like there's all these possibilities. It changes to this mindset of abundance. It changes everything. So, but I mean, like I'm still under 150,000, but in terms of making the conditions for getting the stimulus, but let's say I made 175,000 or whatever. I'm just getting that extra money. It might seem like you don't need it, like they don't need it, but it still gives you like this freedom to do something else, like to give back or to help somebody else out or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying everybody is going to do that, but I'm just saying giving the money to rich people if they want it, like you just don't know what they could do with that.
I have a friend who literally told me that she didn't want another check because she felt guilty She's like, I don't want it because you're saying I don't need
Well,
it.
then donate it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Do something good with it.
Well, I think I think so a lot of people during this time have actually tried to offer me assistance. And so I also feel like, well, I've gotten some and I don't need it as much as maybe this other person. So it's hard for people to actually, I think that's the grace and forgiveness again.
Yes.
People are not compassionate to themselves. They say, oh, we don't need it. This is not a need. But there are a lot of human needs that are met with money.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of different things that you might not think you need, and people are mean and angry to each other when you go online. Like, they're nasty about it. I told people that I was going to buy a bookshelf and then I was going to pay off my car insurance. So people were saying, what would you do with your money, right? So I said, I'm going to pay off my car insurance. Like, I can pay for the whole year instead of saying paying monthly and then like have extra fees, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to need my car insurance. I'm going to need to drive in Texas. There's nowhere you can go with there's no public transit. And then I haven't had a shelf for like probably a year and a half that I've needed to put all my stuff on. This is why our friend is here. He's helping me with this big project of getting all my stuff put on shelves, right? So it's like, okay, really? I said I put that out online, and people were very like, oh yeah, well, you're just gonna give the money to the banks,
Right.
And then you're just like, what do you need a bookshelf for? Like, they're thinking like I'm buying new books or something during a pandemic.
You know what the thing is that, like, what Reverend Wendy Hamilton said, that the church can just like help people like that, but then sometimes when they go through the state, it has all these like hoops you have to jump through and all these things that you have to prove and all this paperwork that you have to sign. By the time you want to finish all the paperwork and jump through all the hoops, like, your needs keep increasing and your situation keeps getting more and more dire. So if the government just gave the stimulus to like a person who just has a little bit of extra cash and you feel quote unquote guilty, just donate it to that person who's being made to jump through all those hoops. I mean, it's not that hard.
Right. Hey, Steven, just want to check in with you real quick. We're at the 1 hour mark. Are we still good?
Yep. I probably have another 20 minutes I can get away with.
Yeah, all right. To follow up with what Ariel was saying there, I'd like to ask you, why do you feel it's important that the church remains a central figure when it comes to community outreach in comparison to the state-funded social safety net programs?
So I have that's actually often my question is, when I went through a tornado last year, I think it was 2019, April 2019, yeah. And the church had to step in and help everybody in the community. So they raised like $600,000, which sounds like a lot, for a poor community.
Sure.
They probably like helped rebuild like 20 something houses. And then they said, well, that's all the need that we have in our community. Even though there's always poor people, they always need more stuff, but like, that's all but the government did not step in whatsoever. Texas did not help. FEMA didn't help. National level wasn't going to help because and I feel like, is it dangerous to constantly be relying on all this private fundraising? I mean, I feel like the state needs to be involved and to do that for people and free up the churches to do to minister in other ways. But the churches are so active in basically meeting all of these needs. A lot of people are just like, well, we don't need the state. In Texas, there's a lot of, we only need the church because the church is going to do it better, and we don't want the state to be involved. But I think the church, shouldn't have to do that. Like, it's just so much, all this extra effort.
The state should just give the church the money then to be able to do that.
Interesting.
Well, probably not going to happen that way. But I mean, I feel like there's a need for Christians, and by the way, I mean, I'm a Christian, but I know that there's lots of faiths that do this. It's not like Christians are the best or the only at helping people out. Okay, but I feel like Christians need to do it because they need to, like because God's done so much for me. It makes me want to give back. That's why I give back, not necessarily because I have to, but because I want to. But I just recently made a video about this, about this idea that, we should just leave it to the churches. And I think it's a great idea, but it's just not really realistic. I feel like any Christian or person at all who thinks that a religious organization or a church like small churches is going to take care of their community, not only do they just don't know the scope, and they honestly don't have that willpower. Like they don't, I mean, like tithing is giving 10% of your income. I don't look at the numbers of people giving here, but I'll bet you that less than 10% of my congregation gives 10% of their income. But I mean, my son, for instance, is on Medicaid for special disabilities. He's 9 years old, but he's like a 1-year-old developmentally. And he's on this Medicaid program, right? So we could go to Minnesota and get his legs worked on. And then he's had like 3 or 4 therapies in Des Moines for years. And we're talking like, this is thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. My church by itself would never have been able to pay for his stuff. Like even if everybody was tithing, and not everybody would want to, because then they would say, I don't know if we should really be giving all that money for this kid who's only going to be a 1-year-old for the rest of his life. I mean, it's going to be really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When you feel like the needs are so great that you could never meet them, it makes you less willing to give because you feel like there's no way to ever really meet that need, and it won't be enough. So
and that's just one kid. That's just like my kid, you know. What about the person that, you know, is hooked on drugs, you know, that has this health issue? Are they going to want to give them money? Are they going to want to pay rent to a landlord who they don't think is very good, even though this person needs a place to stay? I mean, it's just completely unrealistic. I just don't think Christians that say that the church should take care of all of society's needs, they must have no idea what society's needs really are.
Well, they expect that some people are just supposed to be poor, I think, in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's like,
but
we have like, I calculated for that particular incident, like the town of Alto had 2 tornadoes go through in that, you know, and on one day. So a lot of things were destroyed. And I was like, if the population was 1,300, okay, in that town, and they each got that $1,000 a month, I was calculating like, well, how much money is that? That's like $1.3 million. Is that right? Did I get the math right? 1,300 people at $1,000 a month.
I don't have a calculator. It's on my phone.
How much is that?
It sounds right. I'm not a math person either.
But I mean, like, okay, I'm a math teacher, so I'm just going to say it's right. But $1.3 million, that's more than $600,000. And that's every month. And that's spread out to everybody in the community. But if they wanted to give to that church, they probably could have collected a lot more money and to do that job, you know.
Well, they want to give 10%. So, you know, that's $100.
But that's every month of the year for the entire year. So I'm like, that's not even, you know, they're incredibly proud of that $600,000 as they should be. But like, you know, why would you reject a policy?
That's actually 13. Wait, how many zeros? 13 million.
Like what? No, 1.3.
Oh, 1.3. Oh, okay.
Over the course of a year, yes, 13 million. Yeah.
Right.
That's a lot more money into that community, and if they wanted to help each other with that money, they would do it, I think.
But I mean, I feel like we all need to give because we need to. I was just working on this website this morning about just when I talk about needing to give, I'm not telling that it's a command. It's that it's a desire. Like, I think it's 2 Corinthians 9, 8, and 9, this stuff. It's like God loves a cheerful giver. Like, I don't want churches to feel like they have to give. So I don't really think the state should be giving it to churches to dole out, because then you'd feel like you have to. And that's really not, at least from a spiritual perspective, I
was more saying funding a church to handle like a national disaster, because they're able to, because they have the resources and the people. They're more able to divide the effort to recover like an area. But I'm not saying,
And the good thing is that like if everybody had like a social floor, then nobody would feel this kind of thing where it's like, oh, I have a little more than this person, but like it's hardly even enough for me, but I have to give to this person because they have like so little. And then it puts it puts you in this like dilemma, like I need help and they need help. But with this social floor, it like gets rid of that, and it's just like a gigantic weight off people's shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome? I just, as a pastor, I think about how many people are suffering just from the crisis of having no money. Like, it's not that they aren't getting by, it's that they know that if something bad happens, they can't. Like, they're not going to make it. And it's just that constant fear. It's awful. It's just such a horrible thing.
And in this day and age where we have like airplanes and computers and like putting a man on the moon, you can't tell me that people have to be in those situations. That's ridiculous.
So that's back to abundance.
Yeah,
Right.
we're kind of coming up towards the end of our time here, but it's more of a personal thing that I'd like to ask Pastor Stephen. This is a bit of a quote that I believe it was in a video. It was soon after Yang had dropped out, in which you said, this is, I guess, a philosophy and how to build character. You said, suffering leads to perseverance, perseverance leads to character, character leads to hope. I was hoping if we could just chat on that for a while. I think I got the quote right. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's a biblical quote. It's from Romans 5. And I think, I'm not sure now that I said the book and verse, but it is a biblical quote. It's not my own. But yeah, I mean, I guess when I think about in relationship to the Andrew Yang campaign, at least, I feel like, I mean, I still remember it, like the feeling like doing a video when he dropped out, like I just could hardly talk. Like I just kept, I mean, it still just sends shivers down my spine. It's so upsetting when I think about what could have happened. Like I felt like my hope was all gone. Like I felt like all those people that I was praying for that would have that $1,000 a month, not me, but like people that are destitute, like that they just were lost now, like that I failed them or something, you know? But like, I mean, that's what I felt like, that suffering. But what the Bible at least says is that, I mean, it leads, if you continue to work, I mean, that's perseverance. It kind of strengthens you. It's like a coal turning into diamond under lots of pressure, I guess. I mean, if the Yang Gang can continue to persevere through this, you know, that builds up our character. It makes us understand that it's not just about one candidate. If like for me, it's a lot about UBI, but I mean, it like continues to focus our efforts. And then that's really what leads to hope, because I feel like in some ways, even though I saw it happening, like I was putting too much pressure on Andrew Yang. I mean, the guy is not a politician, never has done this before. You know, Zach Grauman, he's like, I mean, I think, you know, personally, I feel like maybe he made some mistakes as a campaign manager. It's his first time. You know, what am I expecting from the guy? Like, I mean, what do I really expect from this? I'm putting so much hope and pressure on like Democrats who are more focused on Donald Trump than on the future of our world or our society. Like, it's just almost unfair how much pressure I was putting on Andrew and all these people to give me my hope. But that's not really where the hope comes from. It's by persevering in these efforts, building our character. That's what leads to hope. I mean, well, and of course, I believe in God as well. That's giving us this. But, you know, if the Yang Gang can really use that experience to embolden us and learn how to spread the message better and, you know, all these things, I mean, I feel like that's what's going to give our country hope. That's my mini sermon.
You got to keep on yanging, all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point. The best thing that we can do is what we're doing is put out more content. The more stuff that we put out into the world, positive energy, the more we're going to get back and get Andrew up there for next time. So
and Yang was just a regular human being, just like every one of us here, and I think that's the main takeaway. It's like he could have been any one of us, and we're just taking the lead. We're just creating, and that's wonderful.
But it takes all of us to do it. He can't literally do it himself, because he was in Iowa doing 5 to 7 events a day. That's when we were like, wait a minute.
It's like now we can have like a whole country full of like Andrew Yang similar people creating just as much energy as he created, solving just as many problems as he solved. And that's that's the lesson in all this, I think.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to the Yang campaign. I mean, like, as the precinct captain and all this canvassing, like, we won. This is, I think it's so funny because, like, at my caucus site, we destroyed the competition. Like, we got 5 delegates out of the 9 possible. We had 15 out of the whatever it was, 32 or that showed up. I mean, it was like, I left that place and I was like, we're gonna win. And then I came home and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
Well, if they had a Stephen Browers in every single one of those precincts, then you would have won Iowa. Yes, you would have.
Maybe. But I mean, all these people, like, I'm still in touch with all of them. Like, I still talk to them. I'm reminding them that how to keep hearing about Andrew Yang, what's going on with UBI. Like, I'm not giving up. Like, 4 years from now, I want those 15 and then whoever else, like, because that's what I mean by, I feel like we need to persevere. We can't just, like, take 4 years off.
Right.
And hope for the
bring
best
10
again.
more people, 9 more people.
I mean,
bring 9 more people in.
look at all those, like, micro grants that were given for the $250 that, like, helped so many people. He doesn't have to be in the White House. It would help a lot. And we can get him there in 2024, but we shouldn't look at that as like, oh, it's either this or bust. No, it's like we're gonna exploit every single avenue that we can exploit to get these solutions out there.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, for me, I still am trying to reach out across the aisle, even though I do feel like maybe in general, for Yang Gang, advice for myself and for the rest of the Yang Gang is to work on Democrats. Like, the Democrats were our downfall, not necessarily independents or Republicans. I mean, I feel personally I probably spent too much time. Like I said, I made my my channel really aimed at the general election, thinking everyone was just going to support Andrew Yang as a Democrat, but I was wrong. And I mean, I feel like in some
Democrats
ways,
are some of our hardest audience.
yeah,
They have a hard time
yeah,
talking to their Democrats. Part of the reason is they're I feel like there's too much football in our parties. It's us against them. So I actually tried to run for this little office, which is to become a national delegate to go to the national convention for 3 whole days. I'm like, that is nothing I need to be too concerned about, right? But when I was running for that, I got certain comments that I realized, they didn't feel that I was a real Democrat if I say to them that Democrats and Republicans are the same. But to me, I feel like you're all humans. You can't see that you're similar, as you're just wearing a blue uniform or a red uniform, but in their minds are very different. And you can never talk to those people on that side. So I feel like there's something going on, it has to be everybody. It has to be all of humanity come together to do this.
I know I really pray that we don't turn into, I mean, like, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter in 2016 and I switched over. Not that I was that involved in Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016, but like, I just don't want the Yang Gang to turn into what I felt like the Burners or the Bernie Bros turned into last time, which is so negative and so, I don't know, bitter. I just don't want that for us. And
no way.
It's the most positive bunch there is, so I think we're going to be okay. So.
I hope so. Because they had a lot of hope in 2016 and they felt like they got destroyed, which they did. I mean, they got like, unfairly treated. But I feel like I need to reach better out to them or to Warren fans or Buttigieg fans. I gotta find a way
why
to
aren't we
reach out
able
to
to
them.
talk to each other
Right.
better? I think we can do
And if there's a candidate that comes out that looks like they say I want like 1,500 per month instead of 1,000, and they're running against Yang. Like, let's say hypothetically, it's not like we're gonna say like, oh, they're trying to steal Yang's thunder, and like Yang didn't win last time, and like we want him to win this time. We'll be like, okay, let's look at the guy. Let's see, what he has to say, and yeah, but I
Well,
don't think.
what
that's
about
gonna
right
happen,
now?
but if it does, okay.
Ariel, give us an update on the Booker situation.
Oh, yeah.
This is I think that was a test trial of our group, which I felt we failed because both Mike Royers and Charles Booker were running on UBI, and we all piled in on one. I think we could have done a better job
No,
of speaking our
well,
energy.
well, let me tell you what I think.
Okay,
Faye,
go.
Mike Breuer blocked some of Amy McGrath's support, and then that opened up for Booker to be in the lead. Because I think Mike Breuer got some of the Amy votes in some of the rural places, and then Booker just swept it away on the other side. So it's like we worked as a tag team.
So what's the update? How's he doing? I don't actually know. I need you to give me my news every day.
Let me pull it up right here.
Okay.
Hang on.
I'd also say, you know, I think sometimes we forget that Twitter is not real life.
Yeah.
You know, so I think from my perspective, it seemed so clear and so obvious that
Booker
Breuer was going to run with it. But
right.
yeah, I don't live in Kentucky. I don't know what it's like, you know, what it's like on the ground with the politics there. But yeah, hats off to Booker.
Booker is in the lead with about like 570 votes. So Booker's still winning.
Just small, but such a small margin right
but
now.
just a small margin. But he looks like he's keeping it up.
Maybe he'll reach out to the Mike guy, and collaborate more once.
No, the problem is I don't understand why our group piled in only on one of them when they're
Because
both
of Scott
UBI.
Clanton's.
No, because we already had a whole bunch of campaign people there. I think we just don't spend enough time thinking about, you know, like how we approach this. You know, sometimes we don't have a lot of leadership from up top, honestly. Where, you know, it's like they're both UBI candidates, and we should have known that, and we should have
I have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew they were both pro UBI candidates. I was not anti Booker. I mean, I was anti McGrath. But I was. I mean, if I was in Kentucky, I feel that I would have voted for Breuer, just given his platform, and his campaign resonated with me deeper than Booker's did. I think Stanton's on his team definitely helped. The Humanity Forward involvement was huge.
Yeah. So I don't understand why we can't support both, because big corporations do that. They buy everybody, you know. They buy everybody in the race, and then they own them all. So I think the people need to start doing that. If they're for our policies, we should support everybody. That, you know, we don't.
No doubt. Yeah. I'm not sure if anybody in the Yang Gang was necessarily like anti-Booker, right? Like I don't think anybody in the Yang Gang would vote McGrath over Booker, right? Like given the choice between the two. So I just think maybe some inter-party lines were drawn a little bit too thick. But I'm not sure if the animosity was really there. Like I don't think anybody's going to be I
saw Patrick made a video with Marianne Williamson, and they basically said, "Oh, Mike Breuer and all." So
yeah,
I just feel like it could have been the emphasis could have been they're both UBI candidates. That could have been the emphasis.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. But at the same time too, we'll see how the general goes. Let's say Booker wins his primary and he loses in the general. I think one thing I hope Yang Gang doesn't become forever, at least, is like the party of told you so. You know? I
think the way we win is both Republican and Democrat in this race are UBI candidates. That's how we win, because there's no way to lose. You can't literally lose if they're all for it.
Right.
So that's why Jeremy is doing his thing. That's why I'm a little surprised if Jeremy to not see that immediately, because I feel like Jeremy is going to be working on this wonderful thing. Do you want to tell us or not? Is this like a secret?
No, it's really not a secret. But I'll be very quick with the explanation, just because we're kind of short on time. But started a PAC. It's not a super PAC. It's just a political action committee. Me and fellow roundtable member Zach Sacker are really the ones behind it right now. But it's a PAC. We're called Restoring American Families, and our sole purpose is to support and find candidates that will run on a UBI platform. So we're targeted exclusively at conservatives, which will likely be conservatives in rural areas. Like we're trying to target areas where like only a Republican is going to win in this district, right? There's nothing, like nothing's going to change that, right? So find people within these communities that can embrace UBI and then help them get into office. So
That sounds awesome.
That's a win for Gang Gang, I think. So
Yeah.
we're 100% behind Jeremy on this. Awesome.
If you have
Well,
a
yeah.
website, let me know. 'Cause
Yeah,
one of the one of the
website should be
things
up later
I'm-
this week.
Awesome. I will try to find it, because one of the things that I'm trying to do on the website I'm starting is just making links to a lot. There's so much great information already out there that I'm just linking to a lot of different websites. And Scott Santons has so much great information, and there's the timeline on was it Gerald Huff, Humanity Forward? I can't. Sorry, I
Fund
can't
for
think of what
Humanity.
the website is. It's great though. But I
Yes.
mean, there's so much that's already been done. Like, I want to reach out to a population that maybe doesn't know much about UBI, and then link to all these great places, and then give the new content is just aimed at Christians, because there really isn't a lot there. I can't believe ChristiansForUBI.com has not been taken. Like, nothing like it has been taken. So
It was for
it's
you.
mine. I paid
It was
for
yours.
It was mine for 3 years.
Yeah, I think what me and Zach are trying to do, it's not difficult to it's actually not that difficult to convince conservatives and Republicans that UBI is a good idea. It's challenging to convince them to run on the as part of their platform, right?
To actually say it.
Yes.
They won't say it to people. If
Right.
they'll
Yeah.
say to you privately, I think
Mhm.
this is a good idea. And then, but thank you so much for joining us, because I don't want to, keep you from
Yeah,
your beautiful children and your beautiful wife. And
Yeah,
yeah.
She agreed. I mean, she is wonderful. She really took a back seat during the campaign. I mean, I asked for her approval, but she doesn't. I mean, she realizes that I go over the top. I don't just write Facebook posts. I make YouTube channels and go canvassing every weekend for 3 or 4 months. But
Yeah.
make phone calls, all this stuff. But I mean, she's just now sort of getting back to, I don't make as many videos anymore. She needed to make sure that I could stop, I guess is the point. But next time I hope to not stop till November.
Well, you do want to just pay attention to that sustainability issue. All of us are in
Yeah.
that boat right now. A lot of us have put our children on hold, or put our, and other relationships on hold. And it is time to make sure that those things are really strong. So I do
Well,
like
the
what Wendy said.
coronavirus gave us a great opportunity to be with our loved ones.
Yeah, that's true. That's for sure. Well, I'm just hoping, well, I live in this small town in Iowa, and we're going to open up our church in July, which I do think it's the right thing to do for us. We've had like 12 cases total since March in our entire county. It's really not here, we think,
Have you checked the jail? Because in our county, we have we had like 25% of our population is in jail, is incarcerated. And we had a huge outbreak there, but they didn't put the numbers in with the regular public health.
Sure. I don't know. We only have a very small jail nearby. I mean, like 2 people max there at any one time. It's not
Okay, good job.
But I worry so much. I do not want to spread it. And a lot of people, I just don't understand why wearing a mask is a political statement.
Yeah.
But it seems to be. And
Yeah.
I'm wearing them, and we're encouraging everyone to wear a mask, but a lot of them won't in my church. And I just don't want anyone to possibly get sick because of this, because it would just make me sick to my stomach. Furthermore, my family won't be coming except for me, because they don't want to be, bringing a little baby or my special needs kid anywhere that would risk it. But
Right.
still,
Hard to
like,
tell kids, even with their masks on, they're just very rambunctious, and they want to touch everything and lick stuff. Yes.
I really hope that it goes okay. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're doing fine online, but a lot of people are wanting to meet together, and so we're doing it. But I hope it all works out. I don't want some like big, a whole bunch of people sick in this area. I just feel like it just doesn't make any sense why we have to put people at risk. But
Well, we believe that you are going to have really good judgment, and you're going to do, take the stance
Right.
that you need to, and make the best judgment, call when this comes to be. And
yeah, hopefully we've been the most conservative church in terms of we're like the last ones to open up, because I figured I'd give the other churches a month, and if it like suddenly we had a bunch of cases, we would never have to like open up. But there haven't been, and that's what I mean. Like in our situation, in our environment, we'll probably be okay. But I know a lot of churches really probably should not be open in cities, for instance, because it's just a very different situation there. But
thank you for bringing Stephen here, Jeremy, so that we could meet him, because this has been wonderful. Thank you for just being such an awesome human being, and it's really nice to get to know you.
thanks so much for inviting me. And I know that I messed it up the one time, so I'm really sorry about that.
Oh no! Do you
Oh,
have
no problem.
do you have like a Twitter handle or something where you'd like people to connect with you, or your YouTube channel? Go ahead and tell us about that.
Sure. Well, my YouTube channel is Yang Gang Christians, and I'm pretty sure. So I only got on Twitter because of Andrew Yang, right? But it's at Browers, which is B as in boy, ROERS, and then Stephen. So at Browers Stephen. I think that's my Twitter handle. And then and I'm just gonna plug it because it's probably gonna launch next week. I'm starting a new website that's www.christians4ubi, 4 is spelled out FOR, 4ubi.com. And that's
All the cool
really
kids
gonna
now
be-
actually spell it out.
yeah. I just decided that was the best way to go, but I'm just hoping that it's a way that I can reach out. It's not really talking about Andrew Yang necessarily. It's really just the policy and answering some common questions that I've heard from other Christians, and just giving lots of links to places where they can find out more about it just in general. So we'll see. I feel like it's something I can do at least.
Well, you have information for the fiscal conservatives who want to know, like, how do you pay for it?
Well, I mean, there's already a lot out there about it, but yeah, I mean, I'll have links. That's the thing. I just don't want to I'm not going to retype everything.
Because your area is very similar to my area in a sense, so I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be checking that out. So.
There's just a lot of just basic questions I feel like I hear over and over again from Christians, and just I want to find a way to get this policy out there, because I feel like if people had known about the policy, they might have been more likely to vote for Andrew Yang right away. And since he has the name recognition now, or at least more so, I'm hoping that maybe the next time we have this opportunity, we'll be able to have a running start. So.
Well, don't be a stranger. Our podcast usually has 5 people at the round table,
Awesome.
so sometimes more. You can hop in anytime when we have a speaker, or just to do a podcast with us. Come by again.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, open invitation. And the same goes for you. Do you want to tell us about your channels and stuff,
Oh,
Daniel?
do I have? No.
You don't-
I'm just kidding.
I'm going to go. Is it okay
Yeah.
if I go, though?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry,
yeah, you're
Daniel.
good, man.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
We'll
love you,
talk to
buddy.
later.
We'll connect
again.
again later another
Yep.
way. Take care.
Bye, Stephen.
Bye.
No, I just didn't want to take away from your channel theme, but yeah,
Channel
AmericanJobsFactory.com. That's my website, and I want to create jobs for the future that don't destroy us. That's the whole idea, and it's a nonprofit that I'm been working on for basically about 1.5 years now. And so it's still relatively new. It's always a work in progress. I haven't created any jobs yet. So I need, people's help to get me there, but it's slowly coming together. I mean, the website is getting better all the time. And even Faye is helping me edit some things on it, and hopefully I will have an explainer video, which I'm working on to go on the website soon, and eventually we'll get there, and I'll be able to. I set up the system and all the groundwork to, as soon as we create jobs, it's going to go really, really fast.
Aren't you
But I
on
just
the
have to get there.
Aren't you on Instagram now? You're saying you're gonna have more Instagram stuff, right?
Well, I've always been on Instagram. The thing that happened with Instagram is Instagram deleted my whole account for American Jobs Factory. I had to redo it. So,
Oh, well, what's your new Instagram?
well, American Job Factory without the S, because they deleted
No S.
they deleted the S and they would not let me have it back. So I had to start again without the S. So American Job Factory on
Always
Instagram.
keep your backups of everything you do, because YouTube just randomly just get rid of your channel for
Or
no reason,
Facebook.
or Facebook, or yeah, it's crazy. Okay, Ariel, did we already introduce ourselves at the beginning? So we should.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so maybe we should say goodnight.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to today's episode of the Yang Gang Roundtable Podcast. Tune back in tomorrow, where we will have a normal roundtable discussion.
Normal. Wow.
No,
I love being part
Regular.
of the normal. Yes.
Guestless.
yeah, no guest tomorrow. Actually,
You
I don't
know,
have anybody booked for next weekend either. Not yet.
Did you know that there's a war on us normal people? Be careful out there.
Yang
You
Gang
normal
jokes.
people need to be careful out there.
Yang Gang jokes.
Well, all right. Special thank you again to Pastor Stephen Broyers for joining us today. And we love each and every one of you guys. So thanks again, and see you next time.
Bye.